What happens to your soul when you sleep? Biblical truth. Night falls the same way for everyone. Lights go out. Rooms grow quiet. Bodies finally stop fighting the day. And yet, something far more important than rest begins the moment your eyes close. According to the Bible, sleep is not simply a biological shutdown. It is a moment of deep spiritual significance. While the world treats sleep as lost time, Scripture treats it as sacred ground. When you sleep, your strength fades, your awareness dims, and your control disappears. You cannot defend yourself. You cannot plan your next move. You cannot fix what worries you. And that is precisely why sleep matters so much to God. Night is the one time every day when human effort steps aside and trust takes its place. You lie down not knowing what the night will bring, believing you will wake up because God is still holding everything together. The Bible repeatedly shows that God works when people sleep. Not because he prefers darkness, but because the soul becomes quiet enough to receive. During the day, noise fills the heart. Responsibilities, fear, ambition, regret. At night, those voices fade, and what remains is the inner man standing exposed before God. Scripture suggests this is not weakness, it is design. Sleep reveals the truth about us. When you sleep, you admit you are not self-sustaining. You acknowledge that life continues without your effort. Your breath keeps moving. Your heart keeps beating. Your soul remains intact. Not because you command it, but because God sustains it. This is why the Bible connects sleep with peace, protection, and divine care. God does not step away when you lose consciousness. He draws closer. There is a reason Scripture says God never sleeps. It is not a warning, it is a promise. While your mind shuts down, heaven stays awake. While your body rests, your soul is watched. While you let go of the day, God continues his work unseen. Healing happens quietly. Direction forms silently. Protection surrounds you without announcement. Tonight we are not talking about dreams as imagination or sleep as rest alone. We are opening Scripture to what God says about the soul when the body sleeps. Because once you understand what the Bible reveals about the night, you will never close your eyes the same way again. Number 1, sleep is a God-designed state of spiritual stillness. Sleep was never meant to be empty time. It was designed by God as a boundary, a moment when human striving stops and divine oversight takes over. From the beginning of Scripture, sleep appears not as weakness, but as intention. God did not create humans to function endlessly. He built rest into creation itself, not only to restore the body, but to teach the soul how to be still. When you sleep, you are not simply resting muscles or calming the brain. You are entering a state where effort ceases. You stop managing outcomes. You stop protecting your image. You stop holding everything together. And in that surrender, something profound happens. The soul moves into alignment with how it was always meant to exist. Dependent, not independent. The Bible consistently links stillness with God's presence. Not noise, not movement, stillness. Sleep becomes the deepest form of that stillness, because it is involuntary. You don't just choose to be quiet, you are made quiet. Your defenses lower. Your inner resistance fades. You cannot pretend in your sleep. You cannot perform. You cannot impress God or hide from him. The soul simply rests in what is real. This is why Scripture often describes sleep as peaceful when one is walking rightly with God. Peaceful sleep is not the absence of problems, it is the presence of trust. At night, God is not asking you to solve tomorrow. He is asking you to release it. Sleep becomes a daily reminder that you are not the foundation of your own life. God is. There is also something humbling about sleep that Scripture never ignores. Every night, even the strongest person becomes portcullis. Kings sleep. Warriors sleep. The wise sleep. And while they do, The world continues without their involvement. This quiet truth reshapes the soul over time. It teaches humility without words. It trains the heart to accept that control is an illusion and trust is a necessity. Sleep, according to the Bible, is where anxiety loses its grip. Fear thrives on constant awareness, but faith grows in surrender. When you sleep, you place your unguarded self into God's care. That act, repeated every night, forms spiritual maturity more than many realize. You are practicing reliance. You are rehearsing faith. So, when Scripture speaks of rest as a blessing, it is not only talking about relief from exhaustion. It is talking about a soul that knows when to stop striving and allow God to work. Sleep is not the absence of spirituality. It is one of its purest expressions. Number 2. The soul does not wander. It is watched. When night comes and consciousness fades, many people quietly wonder what happens to the soul. Is it exposed? Is it unguarded? Is it drifting in a vulnerable state? Scripture answers these fears with clarity and assurance. According to the Bible, the soul does not roam freely or become detached during sleep. It remains under God's watchful care. The idea that the soul wanders at night does not come from Scripture. What the Bible actually presents is something far more comforting. God actively guards His people while they sleep. Night is not a spiritual vacuum. It is a watched hour. The same God who orders the day also governs the darkness. Sleep does not remove you from His presence. It places you deeper within it. Throughout Scripture, God is described as a protector who does not rest. While human awareness shuts down, divine awareness does not. This is not symbolic language meant to sound poetic. It is a theological truth meant to bring peace. The soul is never unattended. There is no moment where God looks away, even when you are unable to look at anything at all. The Bible often speaks of angelic protection, not as a dramatic spectacle, but as a quiet assignment. Protection does not announce itself. It surrounds. While your body sleeps in stillness, forces you cannot see continue their work. You are not exposed to chaos simply because you are unconscious. You are covered. This is why Scripture connects peaceful sleep with righteousness, not perfection. A soul aligned with God rests differently. Fear loosens its grip. Anxiety quiets down. Not because circumstances vanish, but because the soul senses it is being held. Night becomes a place of safety rather than threat. There is also a deeper truth hidden here. Sleep strips away illusion. You cannot maintain control while you sleep. You cannot defend yourself with strength or intelligence. And yet, you wake up preserved. Night after night, this reality testifies to the soul that its safety has never depended on its own vigilance. God has been guarding you long before you realized you needed protection. When you lie down at night, you are not entering vulnerability alone. You are stepping into divine oversight. Your body rests, your mind goes quiet, and your soul remains watched, steady, secure, and known. Number 3. God speaks most clearly when the soul is quiet. Throughout the Bible, some of the most important moments of divine communication happen at night. Not in crowds, not in noise, not in human activity, but in stillness. Sleep quiets the body, softens the mind, and lowers resistance, creating a space where the soul can receive what it would normally drown out during the day. During waking hours, the heart is crowded. Thoughts compete, emotions argue, responsibilities demand attention. Even prayer can become rushed or distracted. But when sleep approaches, those layers begin to fall away. The soul is no longer trying to manage outcomes or impress anyone. It becomes receptive, not because it is trying harder, but because it is finally silent. Scripture shows that God often speaks in this silence. Dreams in the Bible are not random images or psychological leftovers of the day. They are moments where God communicates without interruption. Warnings are given. Direction is revealed. Insight is planted deep within the soul, sometimes understood immediately, sometimes recognized only later. What matters is not the dream itself, but the condition of the soul receiving it. God does not force his voice into noise. He waits for quiet. Sleep creates that quiet naturally. It removes the ego, the hurry, the constant inner commentary. The soul listens without realizing it is listening. This is why some people wake with a sense of peace they cannot explain, or a conviction they did not have before going to bed. God's voice is not always heard as words. Sometimes it reshapes the heart. Sometimes it redirects the will. Sometimes it simply reassures the soul that it is not alone. The Bible also makes clear that not every night contains a message, and not every dream carries meaning. God is not manipulative, he is intentional. But when he chooses to speak at night, it is because the soul is finally in a posture to receive truth without argument. Sleep teaches the soul how to listen, not by effort but by surrender. When the body rests and the mind quiets, the soul becomes a still place where God's voice can settle gently, without resistance, without fear. Number 4, the night is a time of spiritual refinement. While the body sleeps, God continues his work beneath the surface of the soul. The Bible reveals that night is not only for rest, but for quiet shaping. What cannot be corrected through effort during the day is often refined through stillness at night. God does not always heal loudly. He often heals silently. During the day, the soul is armored. We defend our pain. We justify our reactions. We suppress woes that feel too complicated to face. But sleep removes those defenses. The mind relaxes its grip, and the heart becomes exposed. In this unguarded state, God works with precision and care, touching places we avoid when we are awake. Scripture repeatedly suggests that God renews the inner man in ways we do not consciously perceive. This is why sleep can bring emotional relief that no conversation achieved. It is why burdens sometimes feel lighter in the morning, even though circumstances have not changed. God was restoring what you could not repair yourself. Nighttime refinement is gentle, not forceful. God does not overwhelm the soul in its most vulnerable state. He stabilizes it. He strengthens it quietly. He aligns it slowly. The changes may not be visible immediately, but they accumulate over time, reshaping the heart from the inside out. There is also correction in this refinement. God adjusts attitudes, softens pride, and exposes truth without accusation. What feels like clarity in the morning often began as transformation during the night. The soul awakens slightly different than it was before sleeping, not because it tried harder, but because God worked faithfully. This is why Scripture speaks of new mercies each morning. Morning is not the beginning of God's work. It is the result of what he has already done while you were unaware. Sleep becomes the sacred space where restoration happens without resistance. The night is not empty. It is active with divine care. While the body rests, the soul is refined gently, deliberately, and lovingly by a God who never stops working. Number 5, the night reveals the soul's true alignment. Night has a way of exposing what daylight can hide. When distractions fade and silence settles in, the soul is left alone with what it truly trusts. According to the Bible, the quality of a person's sleep often reflects the inner alignment of the heart. Not perfection, but direction. During the day, it is possible to function while spiritually misaligned. Activity can mask unrest. Productivity can distract from unease. But night removes those layers. When the body lies still and the mind slows down, whatever the soul is leaning on becomes evident. Peace or restlessness begins to surface without filters. Scripture repeatedly connects inner peace with trust in God, not with circumstances. A soul anchored in God rests differently than a soul anchored in control, fear, or unresolved bitterness. This does not mean faithful people never struggle at night. It means that sleep reveals where the soul is looking for security. The Bible also warns that unresolved spiritual tension does not disappear when the lights go out. Anxiety, guilt, and suppressed conflict often rise at night because the soul no longer has distractions to quiet them. This is not punishment. It is exposure. God allows the night to bring awareness so healing can begin. At the same time, Scripture speaks of sleep as a gift, not earned, but received. A restful night is not proof of moral superiority. It is evidence of a soul learning to release what it cannot carry. The Bible describes this as casting burdens, not carrying them into the darkness. Night becomes a mirror. It reflects whether the soul is clinging to God or clinging to fear. And through this reflection, God invites alignment, not through condemnation, but through invitation. When sleep comes easily, it is not because life is easy. It is because the soul is learning where to rest. And when sleep is difficult, it is often the soul's quiet signal that something needs to be surrendered, healed, or brought back into God's hands. Number 6. Sleep trains the soul in daily surrender. Every night, without ceremony or recognition, you practice surrender. Sleep is the one act you cannot force. You can prepare for it, but you cannot command it. Eventually, your strength gives way. Your awareness fades, and control slips from your hands. According to the Bible, this daily pattern is not accidental, it is formative. Scripture teaches that faith is not proven only in action, but in trust. Sleep embodies this truth. When you lie down, you are acknowledging that you cannot stay awake forever, cannot protect yourself endlessly, and cannot manage tomorrow by thinking about it tonight. You are placing your life for several hours into God's care without negotiation. This surrender shapes the soul over time. Each night reinforces the reality that your existence is sustained, not self-generated. Your breathing continues. Your heart keeps beating. Life goes on without your supervision. The soul learns, slowly and quietly, that God's faithfulness does not depend on your awareness. The Bible consistently calls people to let go, to rest in God, to cease striving. Sleep is where this command becomes unavoidable. You cannot strive while unconscious. You cannot rehearse fears or plan defenses. The soul enters a state of dependence that mirrors what faith looks like when fully formed. This is why Scripture often links rest with obedience. Trust is not passive. It is chosen surrender. Sleep rehearses that choice daily. It trains the soul to release control, to accept limits, and to rest in God's sufficiency. Over time, this daily surrender reshapes how a person lives while awake. Those who learn to rest well learn to trust deeply. Sleep becomes more than recovery. It becomes spiritual training, quiet, consistent, and transformative. Every night you are not just going to sleep, you are practicing faith without realizing it. Number 7. Sleep foreshadows the eternal rest God has promised. The Bible often speaks of sleep using language that reaches far beyond nighttime rest. Again and again, Scripture connects sleep with the greater promise of eternal rest. Not to create fear, but to build hope. Sleep becomes a gentle reminder that rest is not the end of life, but a passage toward renewal. When you fall asleep, you surrender consciousness, strength, and awareness. Yet you do not cease to exist. You are preserved. You awaken restored. Scripture uses this rhythm to teach the soul something profound. God sustains life beyond effort, beyond awareness, beyond human control. Sleep quietly mirrors what faith believes about eternity. This is why the Bible speaks of death for believers in terms of rest, rather than disappearance. Not because death and sleep are identical, but because they share a common truth. The soul is held by God when the body can no longer act. Sleep trains the heart not to fear the loss of control, because it experiences preservation night after night. There is comfort here that the soul often overlooks. Every morning you wake up is evidence that God kept you through a period where you could not keep yourself. Sleep preaches without words. It tells the soul that God is faithful in the unseen hours, not just in moments of awareness. Scripture promises a future where rest is no longer temporary, where striving ends permanently, and peace is complete. Each night of sleep becomes a quiet echo of that promise. It is not an escape from life, but a reminder of where life is ultimately heading under God's care. So when you close your eyes at night, you are not entering uncertainty. You are stepping into a familiar pattern. God has already proven faithful. Sleep points forward toward renewal, restoration, and the eternal rest prepared for those who trust Him. Conclusion. Night is not an empty space between two busy days. According to the Bible, it is a sacred interval where God continues His work without interruption. While your body rests and your mind grows quiet, your soul is neither forgotten nor inactive. It is guarded, refined, instructed, and sustained by a God who never sleeps. Sleep reminds you, every single night, that you were never meant to carry life alone. You do not hold your future together by staying awake. You do not protect your soul through constant vigilance. God does. And He does it faithfully, even when you are unaware. The quiet of the night strips away illusion. It exposes where your trust truly rests. It invites surrender without force. It teaches the soul to let go of what it cannot control and to rest in what God already holds. This is why Scripture treats sleep not as weakness but as wisdom. When you lie down tonight, you are not stepping into darkness without guidance. You are entering a watched hour. Heaven remains awake. Protection remains active. Grace remains present. The same God who shaped your soul in daylight continues shaping it in silence. So rest without fear. Release without anxiety. Close your eyes, knowing that the night is not a threat, but a testimony. God is at work, and your soul is safe in His hands.